Is civil war inevitable? You've seen the headlines. Soldiers float into the Capitol in a scene reminiscent of the Civil War. Trump's incitement, plan to skip inauguration, recalls Civil War. National Guard sleeping in the Capitol, an echo of Civil War. The Boogaloo Boys prepare for Civil War. And Civil War has already been predicted by The Simpsons. Every breakout of war, whether it is internal or international, is always a shock. But then in hindsight, everyone always says, oh yeah, but the signs were already there, or the predictions were already made. We just weren't taking it that seriously. So how likely is civil war, and who has already been predicting it? Good predictions aren't about guesswork, they're about understanding patterns. And here's what the best predictions are saying about whether there will be war in 2021. First, here's what war cycles predict. Long cycles, prosperity, and war in the modern age. The entire book studies the relationship between war cycles, economic cycles, and K-waves. And the cycle predicts a war around about this time, the same time predicted by both The Fourth Turning and Ray Dalio. And now here's what the book The Fourth Turning, written 20 years ago, predicts. A spark will ignite a new mood. The CDC announces the spread of a new communicable virus. Congress enacts mandatory quarantine measures. Mayors resist. Urban gangs battle suburban militias. Cause mount for the president to declare martial law. The new mood and its jarring new problems will provide a natural endpoint for the unraveling era decline in civic confidence. As the crisis catalyzes, these fears will rush to the surface, jagged and exposed. Distrustful of some things, the individuals will feel that their survival requires them to distrust more things. This behavior could cascade into a sudden downward spiral and implosion of societal trust. The third stage is collapse. At some point, America's short-term crisis psychology will catch up with the long-term post-unraveling fundamentals. This might result in a great devaluation, a severe drop in the market price of most financial and real assets. As assets devalue, trust will further disintegrate, which will cause assets to devalue further, and so on. Many Americans won't know where their savings are, who their employer is, what their pension is, or how their government works. Before long, America's old civic order will seem ruined beyond repair. People will feel like a magnet has passed over society's disk drive, blanking out the social contract, wiping out old deals, clearing the books of vast unpayable promises to which people have once felt entitled. From this trough and from these dangers, the makings of a new social contract and new civic order will arise. This battle could be peaceful or violent, involving public and private militias. Decisive events will occur, events so vast, powerful, and unique that they lie beyond today's wildest hypotheses. Armed confrontation usually occurs around the climax of the crisis. If there is confrontation, it's likely to lead to war. This could be any kind of war: class war, war against terrorists, or superpower war. The United States could find itself at war. I certainly do not hope for war. I simply make a sobering observation. Every total war in US history has occurred during a fourth turning, and no fourth turning has yet unfolded with that one. Okay, so things aren't looking so great, but I want to add a third book in here which actually explains why the things are happening the way they're happening. And this is a book which was written in 1997. The book is called The Sovereign Individual: How to Survive and Thrive During the Collapse of the Welfare State. Believe it or not, this is the same book that inspired billionaire Peter Thiel to start PayPal, and then to use the money from PayPal to invest in companies like Facebook, where he was the first investor, and then other companies like Palantir, which he launched and just had an IPO on at $47 billion. This book didn't just set him on the path to billions, it also made him one of the most high-profile preppers, planning for the worst. Why Silicon Valley billionaires are prepping for the apocalypse in New Zealand. The Sovereign Individual was published in 1997, and a minor cult has grown up around it in the tech world, as a result of Peter Thiel citing it as the book he is most influenced by. And yes, the book does predict a civil war, but it also predicts exactly why it's inevitable. The reason? Because the book shows the pattern of how the nation state has grown and will collapse in the same way that the church grew and collapsed in the 15th century. They show the collapse in the following 5 steps. Step number 1, as a result of the growth of technology, sovereign individuals would rise, use that technology, and have economies as large as nations. Instead of being warlords, they would be entrepreneurs and investors. Step number 2, new digital currencies and a global digital network would be created that would mean nation states have far less control over their markets, their economies, and their money. Basically, the book predicted Bitcoin right back in 1997 when most people still weren't even using the internet. In fact, here's exactly what they wrote. This new digital form of money is destined to play a pivotal role in cyber commerce. It will consist of encrypted sequences of multi-hundred digit prime numbers, unique, anonymous, and verifiable. This money will accommodate the largest transactions. It will also be divisible by the tiniest fraction of value. It'll be tradable at a keystroke in a multi-trillion-dollar wholesale market without borders. So the sovereign individual saw that this digital gold would take the power away from nation states, and as a result, step 3. Nation states will take even more from everyone, print more money, and seek more power, leaving everyone to go either online or fall into poverty. That would lead to step number 4, which is where we are now. Insecurity and injustice will grow, leading to violence and revolution, especially against the elites, including the sovereign individuals. And finally, step number 5, things would end when nation states fall, just as in the 15th century, churches fell to the monarchies and republics, and then monarchies and republics fell to nation states. Here's a few quotes directly from the book. The end of the 15th century was a time of dissolution, confusion, pessimism, and despair, a time much like now. The transition from one stage of economic life to another has always involved a revolution. We think that the information revolution is likely to be the most far-reaching of all. It will reorganize life more thoroughly than either the agricultural revolution or the industrial revolution, and its impact will be felt in a fraction of the time. Fasten your seatbelts. Now, all these cycles and predictions I've mentioned were taken up by Peter Turchin, who's a researcher and scientist 10 years ago. In 2010, he wrote an article in Nature in which he said America will suffer a period of major social upheaval beginning around 2020. He extrapolated K-waves and used quantitative analysis to predict the current and coming civil unrest. So how did he do it? He overlaid historic data which included wage stagnation, national debt, competition between elites, distrust in government, urbanization, and the age structure of the population. And that allowed him to create something called PSI, or Political Stress Indicator. And here's the actual equation. PSI equals MMP times EMP times SFD, where MMP stands for mass mobilization potential, EMP stands for elite mobilization potential, and SFD stands for state fiscal distress. Here's how the last 20 years compared to the 20 years before the Civil War in 1861. That's pretty crazy, right? He showed all the data, he showed the projections, and still people didn't take him seriously. And so he was asked why. His answer? People did not understand that I was making scientific predictions, not prophecies. Now, I'm also not into prophecies or conspiracy theories, but I do watch the data, and this is what the data is saying. So what do you think? In your view, is a civil war likely, or even a bigger war? Do you think nation states' days are numbered and sovereign individuals and cryptocurrencies continue to rise? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And please do give this video a like if you found it useful, and hit the subscribe button. Have a look at this. 95.3% of you watching haven't subscribed yet. And that's with who knows what coming around the corner. So given that all my videos are predictions of the future and how to prepare for what's coming next, subscribe to this channel, and my prediction is that you will be more inspired as well as informed for what's coming, not just over the next year, but over the coming decade. As for where this leads the shift in presidents in the US right now, well, here's what the sovereign individual had to say about that 24 years ago. A system that routinely submits control over the largest, most deadly enterprises on earth to the winner of popularity contests between charismatic demagogues is bound to suffer for it in the long run. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.